We're almost at that part of the telephone game, generational telephone game, or we are at that point where we've forgotten that originally any taxation is complete theft and should be abolished. That was the center argument for, during the establishment of these central banks. And then as time goes on and generations grow up within a tax slave farm, they start arguing about how much is good and or bad, because they forgot their generations away. It's kind of like, your grandma and grandpa would put money in their mattress because they have been they've lived through a bank collapse where they just, one day the bank's gone and you have no more money. So we're living through that now during taxation. People are arguing about how much. I wish it wasn't. These are the things that I wish wasn't so glaring to me, because I think life would be easier just to be able to, like, imagine living through the life of a normie. How much taxation is good and how much taxation is bad. They'll, instead of arguing how much taxation is bad, they'll start off with how much taxation is good. And it's the humble opinion of this piano that no taxation is good and all taxation is bad. How can you have a free society when you are taxing the backs of your citizens? It just can't work with a fiat blood money regime. That just is it's the death spiral of a civilized economy. And that's what we're experiencing now. I don't know if when I look back in history, I'm like, how does this turn out? Has it ever turned around? Do people change? Do people smarten up? And I don't think they do. I think it just gets worse. And I guess that's where the silver lining on Bitcoin exists, is that they have to print their way out of this mess in order for them to survive. So their survival, as much as we want, all the parasitic, rent-seeking, reptilian class of corrupt PDFs need to disappear, and maybe they will. I don't know, maybe one funeral at a time. It'll be interesting to see if we move into the future with their lineage, because we live in a secret monarchy where these jobs are kind of passed down from psycho to psycho, right? You look at Soros and his son. And they say that greatness always skips a generation. That's why you'll have like the classic rockers from the 60s, 70s. They have kids that are all fuck ups, right? That they can't play, they can't sing or whatever. Well, you can see that with George Soros. And so, like, imagine putting that kid on a panel. It's like they're laughing at us. No one really says anything. But it'll be interesting to see if it changes one funeral at a time, or the next generation just takes up where their parents left off, because they're in the telephone game too, right? They were born into what their parents do. It's just normal for them to A, go to a special school, B, go to a special university just to get that ticket. Really doesn't matter if they become a lawyer or whatever. They're just going into politics anyway, and they've got the infrastructure of money behind them to push them into the race, because it's really all about money, and who has the most money wins, right? Back in the day when it was just, if you look back into elementary school, junior high, high school, whoever won was the most popular, right? Maybe the best looking too, but it was never the most qualified. And now whoever wins just has the most money behind them, which makes sense because it's the fiat money business, right? That's all it is. But I'd like to see it change. Maybe in my lifetime. I think that's why I err on the side of Bitcoin. I think it does pose the greatest probability of destabilizing the current system and maybe starting the new one. But as I go into the future and I learn more about the back end of Bitcoin, it's what is that saying? It's like there's something about meeting your heroes. I can't remember who said it. Meet your heroes at your own peril or something like that. When I go down the back door, the back end of Bitcoin, and I see the infighting, I'm like, I remember thinking to myself, who's infighting? How are people infight? How is there anyone infighting about Bitcoin? Right, and then I learned more about how many humans in the dev core are playing the same smaller political game as, the reptilian rent-seeking parasitic PDF class. And then I'm like, well, if so many humans are here fighting about something, because what attracted me to Bitcoin originally was the fact that there was no humans. I used to say that all the time. Now I can't say that. So that's shitty. And then I look at the people that are running it. I'm like, oh, damn it. Because they're all unremarkable retards. I always look for, someone who has potential, I don't know, greatness, leadership, but you can really stranger danger. It's a simple process, and it usually works. I was just talking to my sister this morning. She ran into someone that I used to know 20 years ago when we were recording. He had this recording studio, and he was, I think, 10 years older than us, but he was creepy. And I just kind of knew it from the vibe and the way he looked. He was kind of fat, bald. It's just a stranger danger. But we just kind of put up with him because he was like one of those guys that would buy all the gear so people would come to their studio. It was a weird way. It was like a music gears ice cream truck, right? the truck would come along with all this new gear. Hey, you want to come to the studio and record, right? And we'd be like, sure. It's like, how much is that? Well, it's free for you guys because I love your band. Okay. Well, at that point, where are you going, right? And he ended up, I don't know if he went to jail or he got some sweetheart deal, but he was involved in a Ponzi scheme. And he actually asked us to invest money. So you could see how desperate he was in that Ponzi scheme, that he would ask like his favorite musicians that have no money for any money they have. And he was willing to take it and lose it. And he knew when he's asking us that we'd never see it. But anyway, this is just the stranger danger. We all knew he was a creep and capable of, bad things just by the way he looked. And sometimes that's the villain origin myth. The fact that you are perceived like that, you end up being it. So if he was kind of fat and ugly and bald all his life, it almost brings out the villain. It's how can you go through life with everyone going stranger danger, stranger danger, stranger danger, especially, with women. Women can smell like a creep a mile away, even more than dudes, because dudes don't care. Like if I meet a guy and he's a creep, I'm like, he's a creep. Anyway, next, right? Jesmic too. What was the question here? Up here in Canada, do you use VPN with certain exchanges for a future trade or something else? No, I don't. I kind of went down the VPN wormhole, and it may be wrong, and I may just be subscribing to a conspiracy, but I think it's hard for me to get away from honeypots. I always think, there's things set up for a mind like mine to be attracted to, like a VPN. Hey, hide your. No one can see it. Like it's seducing me in my love and desire for privacy and less government, right? And so I'm always seduced by these things. And then you find out a lot of it goes back to Israel, and it's just a honeypot of companies that are just like, you know, it's like it's like what I say about these exchanges. You know, if you think they don't know where your stop losses are and your take profits are, you're crazy, right? So we're in the age of data where everything is just data collecting. So imagine the advantage of these exchanges where they know exactly what you're doing and where everyone's doing. That's why you have these heat maps and all these, you know, these tools. Oh, there's a million people waiting to go long here. Well, yeah, they're actually telling on themselves now, right? They're like, before that was, you know, you had indicators that were created by old school legacy traders. You know, they would create their, you know, stochastic, you know, a man created it. Now you have like indicators based on the B book. So there's the A book, which is what you get into trading for, like some sort of even playing field. Like, oh, this is the charts, and, you know, I'm going to put my ins and outs here. And then there's the B book, and that's the back end of the exchange that they see. So long story short, I guess I capitulated into the panopticon, and it's like there's no way out at some point. You know, the VPNs are just honeypots too. Like, you know, to me, everything's kind of safe until it isn't. You know, and then you're like, oh yeah, I should have known. Yeah, I should have known. Because for me, it's like I can't think of all these things that are against us, so to speak. You know, like the control mechanism of our society, and then, you know, not think these things outside that. You know, that it's like a pretty girl coming up and giving me attention. I'm like, wait a second, this is just not normal, right? I just know now, like, okay, so I second guess my own seduction buttons, because we all have seduction buttons. That's how propaganda works. You know, there's always things that people want and need. Usually they're base level, like connection, love, intimacy, relationships. That's like the first layer and the easiest way to seduce, because generally people are happy based on that level, that hierarchy of need, if it will. But now it's called like a spousal dependence, I think, like when your happiness is dependent on who you're with, right? I think that's the majority of people. And so when they're single or whatever, they feel like inadequate or at a loss in life, like there's some sort of mathematical equation that isn't working for them. And I think being a musician all my life, I was always musically dependent. Ascension of music. Am I getting better? Yes. Okay, I'm happy. Am I not? No. Well, now I have to get better. And so it always kept, and that's why I always say my 5 never dates as musicians, because they have one love and then everything's in second place. And if you've ever dated a musician, you know, those memes where it has like the girl looking this way in bed saying, I bet you he's thinking about that blonde waitress. And then the guy is like, I should have played C minor 7th instead of G over A. You know, like that's what goes on. Musicians / also thinking about the blonde waitress. There's always that. Like that'll always happen. But moreover, you know, you're thinking about how you could have done something better when you were playing. And that's what girls usually like about musicians is what they end up hating. You know, so the front door is the back door when it comes to relationships. You know, they might say, "Oh, he's so passionate about it." You know, "Oh, what does your boyfriend do?" "Oh, he's a bass player in a band called the VPNs." Yeah, he's really passionate about his bass playing in the band. It's kind of like an alt rock, folky, alternate quirk, pop mashup type band. But he's very passionate about it. And I just love to see passion, right? And then 6 months later, it's like, hey, you still going out with Rocky Rouletti from the VPNs, the bass player? It's like, no. Why? Oh, it's annoying. I mean, he was always talking about bass. He's always talking about changing his strings, or, he had to watch all these bass. There was always bass videos on YouTube. Like, he never watched anything else. And he was like, how can someone just think about the bass all the time? Like, it's the bass, right? I should have known better. Like, I remember some YouTuber telling me never, date a musician, and then also never date a bass player, right? Why are you going to date a bass player? It's like dating the bat catcher, or dating the umpire or the parking ticket guy. It's like, you don't want to date that. If you're going to date a musician, at least date the singer, right? Or the guitar player, not the bass player. Now, I can say this because I was a bass player in a band. I reluctantly chose it because no one wanted to do it. And it was a wedding band that had lots of gigs. So I'm like, I can play the goddamn bass. I'm a guitar player. Because that's how guitar players think, right? Well, I'm a guitar player. I can play the bass. And to a certain degree, it's true. But you have to get into the mind of a bass player. It's a personality disorder, really. In order to facilitate what the bass does for a band, you have to be a different type of cat. You can't be a singer personality. You can't be a guitar personality. You got to be a bass player personality, which is basically the unsung hero, because nobody cares about the bass player. Nobody looks at the bass player. In fact, the only time they look at him, it's like in disgust. It's like, what's that bass player doing? He moved. Like, what is he trying to dance? Oh, God, it's gross. Right? So you just sit there by your amp. You look at the drummer, give a couple of nods when you find the pocket that no one finds, right? No one cares you're in the pocket. You just nod at him. He nods at you. You're in the same boat, kind of, right? Nobody cares. And the less you do, the better the band sounds. But if you have the personality of a singer and a guitar player, you want to dress to impress. Maybe if I play all these notes, got some fancy notes in my bass, maybe I'll go out on the risk curve and play some fancy notes. And that's when you get the stink eye from the normies. What the hell's that bass player doing? Ugh. Look at his hands moving so fast, and he's almost like he's dancing. It's gross. I'm out of here. That's what you got to put up with the bass. Chris Roland, Pianomattyb, I sent you an email or on Twitter. I'm stoked and ready to roll. Check it out and let me know. Was that about the app and the vibe coding? Is Getty Lee? Well, look at Getty Lee, Salt and the Salt email. I didn't get it. I'll check my. You have to wear a beret if you want to be a bass player, and a goatee. You got to have a goatee. I'll check my emails, but I haven't seen it. If you're on Twitter, Crespro, DM me there. That's a good way. Is it regarding the app, or is it something else? Lasers go pew pew. The bass player is usually the worst guitarist. But real basses know how to play. Well, I would say real basses know what not to play. And then once you get into that frame of mind, right, of what you're not playing, you start to champion not playing. How much space can I provide with doing less? And then you realize once you do less, the song pulsates, right? You're like, oh my God, I'm doing this by not doing anything. It's kind of like a lazy musician's dream. The less I do, the better everyone sounds and the more they like me. Because usually bass players are just like, please like me. Somebody like me. Let alone, no one's picking up the bass player. And whoever is picking up the bass player, that's the crazy girl, right? It's so easy. Why would the girl would have to be crazy to pick up the bass player, right? Now, I've seen some famous bands. If you remember the story of the short-lived marriage I was in, her squatter, the guy who actually wanted to marry her, probably should have, was in the band Default. It's a Canadian band. They would be like a famous band in Canada. Kind of sang like this, had the whole thing. It was like Theory of a Dead Nickelback type thing. But they, decent. It was like a 3-piece with a singer. But the bass player, arguably a nice, cool guy. Once the band was done, him and I would walk in the crowd and no one knew who the hell he was. No one. And he was just on stage. He was just on stage. And then, go backstage, say hello, then go grab some beers with him. No one knew who he was. No one cares about the bass player. Kelly McBride, I'm a guitar player, and I know from experience that most guitarists automatically think they can play bass, but almost none of us can. Well, it's not true, because you know how to play bass fundamentally because you know where you got to be, right? You know a G. You know the G chord, you know the G bass root, right? But then there's a lot of bass. Like if you go to the 80s, the 80s was the best. All they did, it was the best time to be a bass player, if there was a good time, because they did a lot of staying on one note. So like, the bass would be doing C, and then the band would be like C, change chord. Boom, 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 the bass player, and everyone's changing different chords, but the bass is just on the root. Everyone's doing a lot of work, but the bass player. Anyway, that was a good time to be a bass. Should we just talk about what's going on in the charts here? Nothing, obviously, nothing's going on. If you think something's going on, I maybe you just want something to go on, like the rest of us, because we all want something to go on, right? We came down here and retested 66, 66, Scotty Mo, 66. And this is just what you do when there's absolutely nothing. Yeah. No, just DM me, Chris Prowlin. I'll always get that. Yeah, or I'll take a look at my emails too, but I don't know. I didn't see it. Now my iPhone, since I updated it, it's been like, we've been at odds. It's like it won't refresh the email, so maybe it's in there. Maybe it's in a new folder that they put in here. Here's what people have never emailed you. We have a special folder for that. Well, that's everybody. Most people emailing me have never emailed me. Crisp, Roland, gotcha. So nothing going on the 4-hour chart. The daily chart, yeah, we're still in this, we almost broke out of our little bull flag here. This is our copium hopium bull flag. Like, maybe this will take us back up to the 20 moving average. Maybe. I hope it does. Because there's some moves I'd probably make here within this little window here. Some moves anticipating. Like I said, my take on price action is my theory and my plan. So if you have a theory and a plan, great. So I've learned enough to, in the years I've been doing this, to establish a theory and a plan and stick to it, win or lose. And it's 2 packages. It's a 50K package. I was not putting 50K in it, 50K obviously, and 29. But I have X equals package at 50. And this is why it's asymmetric, because I think it's going to hit 50, but if I have a package together, X equals 100, X equals $1,000, whatever it is, and it doesn't hit, it means we're out of the bear market and on to better things. Now, if it does hit, it's a great opportunity, to get to stack some sats. Now, the second thing at 29K, that's like my anchor baby bear market bottom. Anchor baby bear market bottom. Anchor baby bear market bottom. That's where my second part of the plan is. And now it's also asymmetric, because if it doesn't hit, that means the 50K is looking good and everything else is looking good. right? So that's the beauty of where we are in our journey through Bitcoin, is that we're not really getting in as a newbie. We're establishing more sats to our exposure with that already exists. And we'll be doing this into the future. You know, like in 4 years, we may be talking about, well, what, you know, my anchor baby bear market bottom is probably 130, right? Who knows? Like, who knows what it'll be? But, you know, we'll always have these plans as long as these cycles are somewhat intact. You know, diminished or not diminished, they'll always kind of play out, you know, until one day it won't, I guess. But until then, E-money, there are only 4 rules you need to remember. Make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, throw away the plan. Yes. Your video about the diminishing CAGR over the last few cycles has me concerned. Should I be? Yeah, I think you should be. I think we are. I'm still surprised that this isn't a massive thing. Now, maybe my math's wrong. I don't know. I did use, I don't sit here and do the math in my head for CAGRs. I do use Grok, and I bully it into, you know, I always say, I think you're wrong, double check. You know, I always double check, triple check, blah, blah, blah. And it is on. And I mean, at that point, the reason why I'm doing that is that I think expectations were so high in this bull market that the compounding effect of sentiment is kicking in, you know, like, hey, I thought, you know, this retard Samson Mouse said 1 million. He says 1.33. This other retard, Raul Paul, said banana zone, like all these stupid things, right? And it adds to the compounding effect of disappointment. So I think moving forward, if you have a realistic mathematical approach to it, because outside of the math, it's all just speculation. So we take the math, we put it into, you know, this little AI on in the 5th dimension, right? We take our 3rd and 4th dimension information, we throw it at the 5th dimension, and then it comes back at us into the 4th and 3rd dimension, and then we live our life with that information. So yeah, it is, because it would be wild, absolutely insanely wild if the simulation played out. Now, like everything I do, like almost everything I do, I hope I'm wrong, right? I hope I'm wrong on 50K. I hope I'm wrong on 29K. I hope I'm wrong on my CAGR videos. That's the sweet spot in my life. I just always hope I'm wrong. I'm on everything, you know, and, you know, things that I enjoy, things that I think are bad or good, I hope I'm wrong on all of them. And when new numbers come out and destroy it, I'll be happy. You know, the last thing I want to do is make one of those videos at 170K in 2029 and then say, Lord, love a duck. That would be the most epic Lord, love a duck in histoire.
Make sure you like and subscribe and share the